The night was dark and silent on the edge of the farming colony. The wind moved softly across the dry fields. The only sound was the slow creak of an old windmill and the low hum of insects hiding under the tall corn. Eli, a lonely farmer, sat on his small porch, drinking water from a metal cup. His hands were rough, his face tired, and his eyes always looked toward the sky. The same sky that once brought ships, soldiers, and promises that never came true. He lived alone, far from the town, because he liked peace more than people. Then, without warning, the sky ripped open. A deep red light flashed above the clouds, followed by a loud scream from the heavens. Eli jumped to his feet, the cup falling from his hand. A burning object rushed through the dark sky like a star on fire. It hit the far edge of his cornfield with a crash so loud that the earth shook beneath his boots. For a long second, everything went quiet again. Then came the smoke, thick, glowing, and strange. It smelled like burnt metal and something else, something alive. Eli grabbed his old lamp and ran into the fields. The cornstalks brushed against his arms as he pushed through the darkness. His heart beat fast. He had seen ships crash before, but never this close, never in his land. When he reached the crater, the air was hot and full of glowing dust. In the middle of the broken earth lay something, or someone. At first he thought it was a small animal, but then it moved. A shape rose slowly from the smoke. It was a girl, or almost a girl. Her skin was pale gray with blue lines that pulsed softly like light under glass. Her hair was short, wild, and silver. Her clothes were torn pieces of fabric and metal, and her body was covered in sticky mud that smelled sharp and sour. When she saw Eli, she made a small sound, a mix between a whisper and a cry. She tried to stand but fell to her knees, shaking. Eli stepped closer carefully. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." The girl looked up. Her eyes were huge, almost glowing white. For a moment, Eli saw something in them. Fear, pain, and a deep sadness. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Only a soft hum like the sound of distant wind. Eli looked around. The ground was full of strange metal pieces, wires, and something that looked like blood, but it shimmered like liquid light. He knew someone would come soon. The patrol drones always checked for crashes. And if they found her, they would take her away. Maybe even kill her. He looked at her again. She was shivering, trying to hide her face. Eli took off his jacket and put it around her shoulders. "Come on," he said quietly. "You can't stay here." The girl didn't understand the words, but she felt the kindness in his voice. She reached out her hand, her fingers long and delicate, and touched his arm. The touch was cold but gentle. And for a second, Eli felt something strange inside him. A warm light spreading through his chest. He didn't know what it was, but it felt alive. He helped her stand and half-carried her through the cornfield back to his small farmhouse. The night wind blew hard, trying to pull them apart, but he didn't stop. He could hear the distant hum of search drones in the sky, small blue lights scanning the horizon. Inside the house, Eli laid her on the old couch near the fire. She curled up like a scared child, breathing fast. He brought water, but she didn't drink. Instead, she looked at him and as if trying to understand his face. "Don't worry," he whispered. "You're safe now." Outside, a thunder of engines filled the air. The drones were close. Eli went to the window and turned off the lamp. He could see the glow of searchlights passing over the hills. The girl made that soft humming sound again, and Eli turned. Her hand was glowing, a small blue light pulsing from under her skin. "Stop that," he whispered, frightened. "They'll see." But the light grew brighter, as if reacting to fear. Then, just as suddenly, it faded. The girl's eyes closed and she fell asleep. Eli stood there, heart pounding. What was she? Why did she fall from the sky? He looked at the broken pieces he had brought in from the crash. A half-melted symbol of a human military ship, and beside it a piece of alien metal that shimmered like stars. He whispered to himself, "What have I done?" Outside, the night went silent again. The windmill stopped turning, and somewhere far away a voice on the radio spoke cold words. "Crash confirmed. No survivors detected. Begin containment at dawn." Eli looked at the sleeping girl. She looked small now, fragile, almost human. He didn't know why, but he felt something deep inside. A promise forming in his heart. He would protect her, no matter what came from the sky next. Morning came slowly over the farm. The sunlight touched the burnt cornfield, shining over black ash and silver metal pieces scattered across the ground. The air still smelled of smoke and strange chemicals. Inside the small farmhouse, Eli sat beside the alien girl, watching her sleep. She looked peaceful now, her breathing slow, her skin less pale. The blue marks on her arms pulsed softly like tiny rivers of light. Eli didn't sleep the whole night. His mind was full of questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? And most of all, why did she fall here? When the girl finally opened her eyes, the light in them was calm but deep, like looking into a quiet ocean. She didn't speak, just stared at him as if she could read his thoughts. "Good morning," Eli said quietly. You feeling better?" She tilted her head slightly, studying his lips, trying to understand the sound. Then she did something strange. She touched her chest and then pointed at him, her eyes soft and questioning. Eli blinked. Me, I'm Eli." He pointed at himself again. "Eli." The girl copied his movement, touching her chest once more. Then she said something, not words, but a soft humming tone that made the room feel warmer. "Lura," she whispered, as if the name came from her heart. "Lura," Eli repeated. "Your name is Lura?" She smiled faintly and nodded once. That moment felt small, but it changed everything. Over the next few days, Eli tried to teach her simple things: food, water, light, sleep. She didn't know how to use human tools, but she learned fast. When she didn't understand, she didn't ask with words. She looked into his eyes, and somehow he understood what she wanted. She didn't talk, but her presence spoke louder than words. One night, as they sat near the fire, Eli noticed something strange. Lura touched a dead flower on the table, one that had been dry for months. As her fingers brushed the petals, they began to move, slowly opening again, glowing softly in the dark. Eli's mouth fell open. What did you just do?" Lura didn't answer. She only smiled and placed the flower in his hand. It was warm, alive. Eli felt something stir inside him. Not fear, but wonder. Still, outside the farm, danger grew. The military patrols had been searching the area for days. People in the town were talking, saying the farmer was hiding something from the sky. Eli ignored them. But one evening, when he went to the market, the laughter started. "Hey, Eli," a man shouted. "You keeping that smelly alien girl as your pet?" The crowd laughed cruelly. "She'll eat him alive one night," another said. Eli turned away, silent. He didn't fight back. Words couldn't change their minds, but Lura felt his sadness when he came home. She touched his hand gently, and suddenly, he saw something. Not with his eyes, but in his mind. He saw a memory. A white room, bright lights, men in armor around a small child with glowing eyes. He heard screams and the word Subject 09 echoing in his head. He stepped back, shocked. "Was that you?" Lura looked away, her eyes full of pain. She didn't need to answer. Eli understood. She wasn't a soldier. She was an experiment. A living thing humans tried to control. And she escaped. That night, the sky flashed again. Eli ran outside and saw a drone hovering above his field, scanning with red beams. He grabbed his rifle, though he knew it wouldn't stop them. Inside the house, Lura hid behind the curtain. Her hand glowed faintly, fear making her energy unstable. The light under her skin moved like fire. "Stay quiet," Eli whispered. "Don't move." The drone passed once, twice, then stopped above the barn. A small red dot blinked, recording. Eli's heart sank. "They found us." Lura stepped forward, her eyes glowing now with bright blue light. She lifted her hand and the air around her began to vibrate. The drone froze mid-air, its lights flickering wildly. Then it exploded silently, falling into pieces of metal dust. The power from Lura's body faded fast, and she fell to her knees, breathing hard. Eli ran to catch her before she hit the floor. Hey, easy," he said, holding her close. "Don't do that again." But Lura looked at him and smiled weakly. Then she placed her glowing hand on his chest. For a brief second, Eli felt her fear, her loneliness, and her deep wish to belong somewhere and anywhere. He whispered, "You're not alone anymore." Outside, the destroyed drone burned quietly in the field, but its signal had already been sent. Far away, in a cold metal room, a soldier stared at a screen. A red dot blinked on the map. "Target located," he said. "Sector 12. Send a team." Inside the farmhouse, Eli closed the door tight and sat beside Lura again. The wind howled outside, shaking the old windows. He looked at her sleeping form, small, fragile, and glowing faintly in the dark. He knew now that she wasn't just an alien. She was something the world feared, because she could make even a cold heart feel alive again. And as he watched the stars outside his window, Eli whispered to himself, "They'll come for her, but this time, they'll have to go through me first." The night was quiet again, too quiet. A thin fog floated over Eli's farm, wrapping everything in silver shadows. The broken drone lay buried under the soil, but Eli knew it wasn't enough. The soldiers would come. Maybe not tonight, but soon. Inside the house, Laura sat near the fire, her eyes glowing faintly. She looked stronger now. The light in her skin was calmer, her movements softer, more human. She was learning fast. She could understand many of Eli's words now, even though she still couldn't speak them. Sometimes she would draw on the dusty floor with her finger, small symbols and shapes Eli didn't recognize. That night, she drew a circle with 3 lines through it. Then she pointed at the window, the sky, and shook her head slowly. Eli frowned. "No sky? What do you mean?" She closed her eyes. A soft hum filled the room and an image appeared faintly in Eli's mind. A memory from her world. A lab, cold white walls, people in suits with no faces, and a cage of light. Then the symbol again, the circle with 3 lines. Eli stepped back, heart pounding. "They locked you there?" Laura opened her eyes. Tears glimmered like stars on her cheeks. She nodded. He knelt beside her and touched her shoulder gently. "You're safe now," I promised, but he didn't believe his own words. Not yet. For the next few days, Eli worked in silence. He repaired old wood, moved heavy barrels, and dug beneath the barn floor. Each strike of his shovel echoed like thunder. He built something the world hadn't seen in years, a hidden chamber, a secret place beneath the barn, deep enough to hide her if the soldiers came. The old boards above made it look like just another dusty floor, but below he placed clean blankets, water, food, and a small lamp. It wasn't much, but it was safety. When Laura saw it, she tilted her head curiously. "It's for you," Eli said softly. "A place to stay if they come." She didn't speak, only stepped down the wooden ladder and looked around the small hidden room. She touched the walls, then placed her palm on the dirt, closing her eyes. A faint blue glow spread through the floor, and tiny green shoots of grass began to rise from the earth. Alive, fresh, breathing. Eli smiled weakly. "You're something else, you know that?" Laura looked up at him and smiled for the first time. A real, human smile. But peace never lasts long. A week later, trouble came not from the soldiers, but from the village. A young boy named Tarek, curious and always hungry for adventure, followed Eli one night. He saw the lights from the barn and heard strange sounds, like wind singing through metal. He hid behind the fence and peeked inside. What he saw made his heart race. The alien girl, glowing, moving slowly, her hands over a broken plant that suddenly bloomed again. Tarek's eyes went wide. "She's real," he whispered. "The alien's real." The next morning the whole village knew. At the market, whispers spread like fire. They say the farmer's keeping a monster. She's dangerous. "Look what happened to the sky last week. They'll bring soldiers here. He's going to get us all killed." Eli ignored them, but he could feel the fear growing. When he walked through the street, people stepped aside. Even children stopped playing and stared. By evening, someone had spray-painted his farm gate with red words, "Alien lover, stay away." That night, Eli sat alone in the barn. Laura sat across from him, holding the flower she'd made bloom earlier. She looked sad, almost guilty. "It's not your fault," Eli said quietly. "Humans fear what they don't understand." She didn't reply, but her light dimmed. The next morning, the sound of engines broke the silence. Eli rushed outside. 3 black hover trucks stopped near his fence. Men in gray armor stepped out, military patrols. "Farmer Eli," one of them shouted, his voice metallic through the helmet. "We have reports of alien activity on your land." Eli's heart froze. "You're wasting your time," he said. "I haven't seen anything." The soldier's visor glowed red. "Step aside." Eli stood tall, blocking the door. "This is private property." But before the soldier could answer, a bright flash burst from the barn window. Blue light spilled into the morning air like lightning. Lura. Eli turned. She was standing in the doorway, eyes glowing with fear and confusion. The soldiers raised their weapons instantly. "Don't!" Eli shouted. "She's not dangerous." But the command drones above had already locked on her heat signature. Alarms wailed. Lura looked at Eli, eyes full of trust, then raised her hand slowly. Her voice came out as a soft echo in his mind. "I will not hurt them." Before anyone could move, a blast of wind swept across the field. The soldiers fell to their knees as their weapons shorted out. The air smelled like rain and light. Eli grabbed her hand. "Run!" They ran into the woods behind the farm as searchlights cut through the fog. Lura's glow lit the trees as they disappeared into the dark. Behind them, the barn caught fire. Flames rose high, painting the sky orange. The farm was gone, but the secret beneath it remained. A single flower grew through the cracks of the burnt barn floor, glowing softly blue, proof that something beautiful had lived there. That night, far away in the command base, a voice said coldly, "Subject 09 has been found. Issue bounty notice. Alive if possible, dead if necessary." And on the dark road, Eli held Lura close, whispering, "We'll find a new home, somewhere they can't reach you." Lura's eyes closed. Her hand rested on his heart, glowing faintly. Somewhere inside him, a spark of her light stayed, warm, alive, and unbroken. The forest was dark and silent except for the soft crunch of Eli's boots. He moved carefully between the trees, holding Lura's hand. Her skin glowed faintly blue, lighting the path like a lantern. They had been running for 2 nights. The soldiers were everywhere. Drones in the sky, trucks on the road, scanners that could feel heartbeats through walls. Lura was weak now. Her light flickered sometimes like a dying candle, but she never complained. She trusted Eli completely. They reached an old hunting cabin deep in the forest. The door was broken, the walls full of holes, but it was shelter. Eli helped her inside and covered the windows with old blankets. "You need to rest," he said softly. She sat down, breathing slow, her hands shaking. When she closed her eyes, a faint hum filled the air. The same sound Eli had heard the first night they met. He didn't know what it meant, but it felt peaceful. At sunrise, the air changed. The birds stopped singing. Eli stepped outside, frowning. The forest felt wrong, too quiet. Then he heard it, the low growl of engines. He ran back inside. "They're here," he whispered. Lura's eyes opened, glowing bright now. "Eli," she said softly in her strange echoing voice, "you must go." He froze. "You can talk?" Her voice was weak but clear. "Only when it matters." Eli shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." Outside, the sound grew louder. Metal boots, radio clicks, distant voices. Lura stood up, placing her hand on his chest. "If they find me, they will kill you. I can't let that happen." Eli grabbed her wrist gently. "Then we fight together." The first explosion hit the door. Wood splintered. Smoke filled the room. Soldiers in black armor stormed in, shouting commands. Eli pushed Lura behind him, holding his old rifle. "Stay down!" "Target sighted," one soldier yelled. Before Eli could fire, a stun blast hit him in the chest. He fell hard, gasping for air. The soldiers surrounded them instantly. One of them, the commander, stepped forward. His armor shone red under the light. "So you're the farmer," he said coldly. "You've caused us a lot of trouble." Eli spat on the ground. "She's not your property." The commander smirked. "She's not a she. She's an experiment. A weapon that doesn't know what it is." He turned his helmet toward Lura. "Subject 09, come quietly." Lura trembled. Her eyes glowed brighter, but she didn't move. Eli shouted, "Don't listen to him." The commander raised his weapon. "You think she cares about you, farmer?" "She can't love. She can only obey her programming." That word, love, made Lura flinch. She looked at Eli, her expression full of pain and confusion. "No," Eli said. "You feel, Lura, I've seen it. You're more human than any of them." Something broke inside her. The glow on her skin spread like fire, bright blue veins lighting the cabin walls. The soldier stepped back in fear. "Stop her," the commander yelled, but it was too late. A pulse of energy exploded from Lura's body. The shockwave threw the soldiers outside like leaves in a storm. Windows shattered. The air hummed with strange light. Eli shielded his face as everything around him burned with blue fire. When it ended, silence filled the cabin again. Smoke drifted through the holes in the roof. Lura stood in the center, trembling. Her light was fading. The commander lay unconscious outside. Eli rushed to her. "Lura, are you okay?" Her body shook violently. "I used too much," she whispered. "I didn't want to hurt them." He held her tightly. "You saved us," but she didn't answer. Her eyes rolled back and she collapsed in his arms. Night came again. The forest glowed with the faint fire of crashed drones. Eli carried her deeper into the woods until he found an old tunnel, part of an abandoned mining route. He built a small fire and wrapped her in his coat. She looked so small now, so fragile. As he sat beside her, he noticed something glowing under her collar. A mark, shaped like a spiral with tiny symbols inside. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat. He reached out and touched it. Instantly, an image flashed in his mind. Soldiers, scientists, a glass tank filled with blue light, and Lura floating inside, whispering his name before he ever met her. Eli gasped and pulled his hand back. "What was that?" Her voice, faint and distant, echoed in his thoughts. "I saw you. Before the crash. In my dream." Eli looked at her, stunned. "You dreamed of me?" Her lips curved into a weak smile. "You were the only human who didn't look afraid." Then her light dimmed completely. At dawn, Eli heard helicopters in the distance again. They were still searching. He knew he couldn't keep running forever. He picked up his rifle, loaded the last few bullets, and looked at her sleeping face. "Hang on, Lura," he whispered. "I'll find help. I'll come back." He stepped out into the cold morning air. The sky was gray, full of smoke and sorrow. Behind him in the tunnel, Lura stirred, her mark glowing faintly again. Far away, the Empire's base received a signal from a broken tracker. Subject 09 energy level unstable. Possible awakening. The commander, now scarred and furious, watched the report and whispered, "Let her awaken. We'll see what she really is." In the forest, Eli kept walking through the mist. His mind burned with one thought. He wasn't just protecting an alien. He was protecting the only thing that could change the whole human heart. The forest was silent again. Only the soft crackle of dying fire broke the calm. Lura lay inside the old mining tunnel, her body still and pale, her light almost gone. Hours passed. The wind whispered through the trees like a voice calling her name. Then, her mark began to glow again, brighter and brighter, until the whole tunnel filled with blue light. Her eyes opened suddenly. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The air smelled of dust and smoke. Her last memory was Eli's face, his voice promising, "I'll come back." But he was gone. She sat up slowly, her body trembling with weakness. The light in her veins flickered like candlelight. She touched her heart, the place where Eli's hand had once rested, and whispered his name softly, Lee. The word sounded broken but real. Her first human word spoken alone. Outside the tunnel, distant thunder rolled, not from the sky but from engines. Lura stepped into the cold morning. The forest around her was burned and empty. In the far distance she saw black smoke rising, the remains of Eli's farm. She felt something new then. It wasn't fear. It wasn't sadness. It was anger. Her people had taught her that humans were cruel, that they used and destroyed anything they didn't understand. But Eli had been different. He showed kindness. He gave her food, warmth, a name. She looked at the sky. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do they hurt what is good?" The mark on her neck pulsed again like it could feel her pain. Suddenly she heard a voice inside her head. Soft, mechanical, ancient. Subject 09. Genetic memory activated. "Seek the source," Lura gasped. The voice wasn't Eli, it wasn't human. It was part of her, like something buried deep in her mind. "The source," she repeated quietly. "Where is it?" Her vision blurred, and then an image appeared before her. A glowing red planet floating in her thoughts. A place she didn't recognize but somehow knew. Mars 3 days later. Lura walked across the wastelands. Cold desert, endless dust, and the remains of old machines half buried in sand. She didn't need much food. The light in her body kept her alive, though weaker each day. At night she dreamed of Eli, his voice calling her name, his hand reaching through smoke. Sometimes she thought she saw him in the stars. Once she found an old human camp, empty now. But there was a cracked mirror inside one of the tents. For the first time, she looked at her own reflection. Her face was thinner, her eyes too bright, her skin still gray-blue. But she saw something human in her expression, something she didn't notice before. Emotion. She touched the glass and whispered, "Laura." It was like she was reminding herself who she was. By the fifth night, she found life, a small rebel outpost hidden under the cliffs. When she approached, weapons were pointed at her instantly. "Stop," a woman shouted. "Identify yourself." Laura raised her hand slowly. "I need help." Her voice cracked like broken metal. The rebels looked at each other. She looked strange, weak, glowing faintly, but her eyes were gentle, not wild. One of them, an older man with gray hair, stepped closer. "You're one of them, aren't you?" "From the labs." Laura nodded slowly. "Yes, they took me," the man sighed. "Come in. You'll freeze out here." Inside, the base was small but warm. Old computers buzzed softly and the air smelled like oil and dust. The man handed her a cup of water. "Name's Arden. Used to work for the Empire before I found out what they were doing to your kind." Laura looked at him. "My kind?" He nodded. "You're not the only one. There were 12 like you. Only 2 survived. You and another, Subject 01. But he didn't escape. He's still in the Mars lab." Laura's heart froze. "Eli, they took him there too." Arden frowned. "A human?" "The farmer," he sighed. "Then he's in the same prison as the test subject." "I'm sorry." Laura stood up slowly. The blue light on her skin grew brighter. "I'm going there." Arden shook his head. "You won't make it. Mars is locked down. No one enters without the Empire's codes." Laura closed her eyes. "I don't need codes." The ground vibrated slightly beneath her feet. The lamps flickered. Energy began to rise around her again, quiet but powerful. Arden stared. "What are you doing?" Laura opened her eyes, and they glowed pure white now. Finding him. That night she sat on the roof of the rebel base looking at the stars. The rebels whispered her name like a legend. The glowing girl who came from the sky. She held the flower Eli once gave her, now dry, but still glowing faintly. She placed it near her heart and whispered, "Wait for me, Eli, I will come." In the sky above, a faint red shimmer appeared, the reflection of Mars. Her mark burned brighter than ever. Somewhere deep in her mind, the voice spoke again. "The source awaits. Follow the bond." And she understood. Eli wasn't just a person she loved. He was the link that connected her power to something bigger. Love was her compass. At dawn, she left the camp. The rebels watched in silence as she walked across the desert, her light shining through the fog. One whispered, "Where do you think she's going?" Arden replied softly, "To war, maybe, or to save a heart." Far above, inside a cold Empire lab on Mars, Eli opened his eyes. Chains held him to a chair. A scientist whispered behind the glass, "She's coming for him." The commander smiled darkly. "Good. Let her come. We'll catch a god." Mars, red, cold, and silent. The Empire's capital shone like a cage of light. Towers of steel reached into the dark sky, and every street below carried soldiers, scanners, and fear. In the middle of it all stood Lab Orion, where humans played God. And inside one of those glass rooms sat Eli, tired, wounded, but unbroken. He stared at the red horizon through a small window, whispering the same name over and over, "Laura." The guards laughed sometimes. "Still hoping the alien comes for you, farmer?" Eli didn't answer. He just smiled softly. "She will." Far above Mars, a silver comet streaked across the sky. Except it wasn't a comet. It was her. Laura moved through the thin atmosphere wrapped in light. The glow of her body burned like a small sun. The mark on her neck pulsed with every heartbeat, faster, stronger. Her energy was unstable, but she didn't care. She could feel Eli. The connection between them was alive, calling her forward like a heartbeat across space. When she entered the planet's air, fire surrounded her. The surface of Mars shook as she fell. She crashed into the desert just outside the city. The impact sent waves of light across the sand. Soldiers rushed to the site, shouting orders. But when they arrived, the crater was empty. Only glowing footsteps led away into the storm. Inside Lab Orion, alarms rang. Energy surge detected. Unknown life form inbound. The commander, scarred from their last encounter, smiled. So the little ghost finally found her way home. He turned to the scientist beside him. Prepare containment. If she breaks in, let her see the farmer first. The sky over the base turned blue, something Mars had never seen before. Laura walked through the sandstorm like a goddess. Every step left trails of light behind her. Drones surrounded her, but she raised her hand and they fell one by one, their circuits burning out without a sound. A human soldier aimed his weapon at her. "Don't move," he shouted. She looked at him with sad eyes. "I don't want to hurt you." Then she touched the ground and a pulse of light spread in all directions. The soldier dropped his gun and fell to his knees, crying without knowing why. His heart remembered something it had forgotten: kindness. Laura kept walking. Inside, Eli heard the explosions, the rumbling, the faint echoes of her power. He pulled against the metal cuffs until his wrists bled. "She's here," he whispered. "Laura's here." The door burst open. Smoke and light filled the room. And through that light she appeared. She looked different now, stronger, brighter, more human than ever. Her eyes found him instantly. "Eli," she said, her voice trembling with love and power. He smiled weakly. "You came, I promised," she whispered. But the reunion was cut short. The commander stepped forward, weapon in hand. "You're too late," he said coldly. "The human will die, and you'll be contained." Laura stepped in front of Eli, her hands glowing. "You don't understand," she said softly. "I'm not here to fight," the commander sneered. "Then die with him." He fired. A bright beam shot across the room, but it never reached them. The light stopped mid-air, frozen. Laura raised her hand and the beam shattered like glass. Her glow became blinding. The walls shook. Machines screamed. Every monitor turned blue. "Laura!" Eli shouted. "Stop! You'll burn yourself." She looked back at him with tears in her glowing eyes. "It's the only way." Her mark expanded, covering her whole body. The energy inside her exploded outward, filling the room with pure light. But this time it wasn't destruction. It was life. Every soldier in the building froze, then felt warmth spread through their bodies. Memories of family, laughter, love, things they had buried under orders, returned. Even the commander dropped his weapon, whispering, "What is this?" Laura's voice echoed through the base, calm and full of peace. "It's what you forgot, what makes you human." The metal walls melted into light. The machine stopped humming. The city outside glowed under a soft blue sky for the first time in history. Eli reached for her. "Laura, please." "Stay with me," she smiled faintly. "I will, but not like before." Her body began to fade, turning into small orbs of light floating around him. "Where are you going?" he whispered. "Everywhere," she said. "Love doesn't die. It becomes the air, the light, the sound of a heartbeat." He fell to his knees, reaching for her, tears falling. "Laura!" One small orb stopped above his hand and pulsed gently. Her voice whispered one last time, soft, warm, eternal. "You taught me what it means to be alive." And then the light spread across Mars, touching every human heart. Weeks later, Mars was no longer red. Plants began to grow again, small green leaves shining under the strange blue sky. People called it the awakening. Eli lived quietly on the edge of the new world, planting seeds in the soft soil. Each night when he looked up at the stars, one of them glowed brighter than the rest, blue and alive. He smiled softly. She's still watching. And when the wind blew through the fields, he sometimes heard a familiar voice whisper, "Love changed everything." Years passed since the day the sky on Mars turned blue. The world had changed. No one remembered the war anymore. Only the light that came and stayed. Where fire once burned, green now grew. The red planet slowly became alive. Wind carried seeds across the dunes, and rivers began to run through valleys that had been dry for centuries. The people called it the Second Dawn. And in the middle of that new world, a man lived alone on a quiet hill. His name was Eli. Eli's hands were still rough from years of farming, but his eyes were softer now, like he carried both sorrow and peace inside him. Every morning he walked to the same spot on the hill, a small garden surrounded by smooth stones. In the center of the garden grew a single flower. Its petals were silver and blue, glowing softly under the morning light. No one knew how it survived the cold nights or the thin air. But Eli knew. He knelt beside it and whispered, "Good morning, Laura." The flower swayed gently, as if listening. Sometimes, travelers came to see the strange glowing plant. They asked the same question every time. "Is it true, old man, that this is the flower that changed Mars?" Eli would smile. "It's not the flower," he would say quietly. "It's what it remembers." He never told them more. Some said the old farmer was mad. But when night came, and the stars glowed like rivers of fire above the blue sky, even the doubters felt something, a calm they couldn't explain. One evening, a young girl visited him. She wore a simple coat, her face covered with dust from travel. She stood near the glowing flower and whispered, "It's beautiful." Eli nodded. She was beautiful too. The girl looked at him curiously. "Who?" He smiled faintly. "The one who planted it." The girl knelt beside the flower. "My mother said the blue sky came from an alien who loved a human." She hesitated. "Was that true?" Eli looked at the horizon. The wind brushed through the grass, glowing faintly in the dark. "She wasn't just an alien," he said softly. "She was life itself. She showed us what it means to care, even for those who hurt you." The girl listened quietly. "Did she die?" Eli's eyes filled with light from the flower. "No," he said. "She became the world." Later that night, Eli sat beside the flower, staring at the stars. One of them, the brightest, glowed pure blue. He could feel her there. He always could. He remembered her voice in his mind. "Love doesn't die. It becomes everything." He smiled softly. "You were right, Laura. You made them remember what it means to feel." He placed his hand on the ground, and the soil pulsed faintly with light, the same color as her veins once were. For a moment, Eli thought he heard her hum again. That soft, calming sound she made the night she fell from the sky. It came from the wind this time, gentle and warm. The next morning, the people from the colony found Eli sitting beside the flower. He wasn't breathing anymore, but his face was peaceful, like he had fallen asleep smiling. And around him, the ground had changed, the soil shimmered, and hundreds of new blue flowers had bloomed overnight, spreading across the hill like starlight on earth. The people named the place the Valley of Light. They built a small monument there, a stone with words carved simply. They laughed when he brought her home. They cried when her love saved the world. Years later, children of Mars would visit that valley during the blue sky season. They would run between the glowing flowers, laughing and shouting her name like it was magic. "Laura, Laura!" And sometimes when the wind blew softly through the petals, it carried a whisper, a sound older than language, gentle as breath. Eli. In time, humans forgot many things, wars, kings, even planets, but the story of the farmer and the alien girl never faded. It became a legend told under starlight, a story about how a single act of kindness could change an entire world. And at the edge of the galaxy, explorers would sometimes see a strange blue light floating through space. It looked like a flower, drifting endlessly among the stars. And those who looked at it too long said they felt loved. Maybe it was a dream, or maybe it was her still keeping her promise. Because love, once awakened, never sleeps again.